Big thanks for joining me as TMI Tuesday, and we're going to be looking at matters concerning the grazing bill, Edo State grazing bill that is before the House of Assembly. And yesterday, there was quite a huge protest by parallel civil society organizations that came up protesting over the rumored issue concerning the extended part where the part of the land could be ceded to the federal government for the livestock national transformation plan in order to bring about cattle rearing. And discussing this with me, I have the civil society activist, the interim tech chairman of Edo Civil Society Organization, and he's also a bishop, Bishop Oche Osadolo. Thanks for joining me, Bishop Oche.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you and good morning, viewers and listeners at home. God bless you.
Well, as you can see, I have an array of distinguished guests, and next to Bishop Oche Osadolo is the President, Edo State Chapter of the Association for Formidable Education and Development, and is also an Executive Director of Africa Emancipation Project. And he is Osage God-Sent Erunse. Osage God-Sent Erunse is also a social media influencer. Thanks for joining me, Osage.
Thank you so much, Philip, for having me. Good morning, dear. It's a pleasure again. Thank you.
And next is a political analyst, not just a political analyst, he's also a political economist, and he is Ibrahim Momo. Ibrahim Momo is also a social media influencer. Thanks for joining me, Ibrahim.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, distinguished viewers. Welcome to TNI.
Okay, like I did say, you were at the forefront, Bishop Oche Osadolo, over the protest that took place yesterday to the House of Assembly, and the report have it that you people had that part of the bill, the Edo grazing bill before the House, seemed to be ceding some part or percentage of the Edo land to the federal government for cattle rearing. What do you make of that? How do you take that as a thought?
One, we had on television that the governor of Edo State, His Excellency Godwin Obaseki, has transmitted the bill on anti-open grazing to the House for deliberation and passage into law. So we also watch the House give it first reading, and we also remembered that last year the state government called for a town hall meeting for stakeholders in the state, even though there was argument that day, but finally we were allowed in. And we presented our position paper to the governor in that meeting, stating very clearly that cow and cattle business is a private business, and government should not have anything to do with it except supervision and regulatory positions and collect their revenue from them. Other than that, any other thing government want to do is against the law. It's against the law because, one, those who are into other animal husbandry, piggery, fishing, poultry, rabbitry, snarery, among others, no one has been given 1 inch by 1 inch for their land to do their business, to establish their farm. They are the ones who go, either they go and lease or they buy land in places where they feel they can do their business and establish their business. And these persons are paying tax to Edo State government. Now, for Edo State government, after the governor, Godwin Obaseki, have held meeting with all the Southern governors. This time there is no PDP, there is no APC. They all met and they took a position and they signed a resolution at Asaba. And in that resolution, they agreed that each state governor and government should pass the anti-open grazing law into law on or before 1st September 2021. And as I speak, Edo State government is the only one that have not signed that law. Every other governor in the region, entire southeast, south, southwest, have transmitted their letters or their bill to the House of Assembly of their state, and the House has passed it into law, and the governors have assented to it. The big question we have for our governor, Gordon Obaseki, was he sleeping in that meeting when that resolution was passed?
Was it binding for him to take it hook, line, and sinker? Don't forget, we have a state government.
Yes, it's signed. Whatever you sign is binding on you, because nobody facing with a gun to say if you don't sign, you won't live here. It was not under the law. So
but don't forget, it's a resolution.
My brother, it is a resolution that they have all agreed to implement, and they gave to themselves a date within which to implement it, and he signed. At that point, when that meeting was being held, and they brought in a date, a deadline for them to sign, he has an option to say, I'm sorry, I can't sign this. I'm sorry, I've not consulted with my people. Whatever excuse you want to give is at liberty in that meeting to give it.
Okay, so which means your bone of contention is not just only on the aspect of the rumor you had concerning the part of bill, but also on the deadline that was...
I'm giving you the background.
Okay.
Where we begin to suspect that something is wrong, that somebody have collected Ruga money from Mr. President, and somebody is working on that one to enslave and kill the people of Edo State. And we are saying no to that. If it doesn't happen now, it will happen in the third or fourth generation.
Okay.
So let me go back to why we protested. When we now saw that it has passed first, second reading, and there was no call for public input, because they're supposed to call for public hearing, so that the public will make their own input, whether they want it or they don't want it. Like as articulated in the town hall meeting we had at Imagweru, where everybody spoke clearly that we don't want anything called colony, Ruga, or whatever nomenclature that they want to design for it. So if that is not done, and now they are debating how many percentage of land they want to give to these headers in communities or in local government. 20% of a land in local government is more than Oredo. If you go to some local government, you are taking their 20%. The size is more than Oredo. So we are saying we have no 1 inch by 1 inch to cede to anybody. Whether it's a Benin man rearing cow that is hiding, whether it's a big man they are trying to protect that has a cow that employs Fulani, or whether it is Fulani that owns a cow, our position as people of Edo State is that we don't have 1 inch by 1 inch to give to them as per government, but they have right to go and buy land or go and lease land and do their business and stop cow from straying outside, either on the road or in the farm and destroying people's properties or crops.
Thank you very much, Bishop Oche Osadolo. I think the bone of contention here is based on the rumor that is being heard, and this was cleared by the Speaker of Edo State House of Assembly, that the House of Assembly is with the people. And I think you should take it from there, Osage Godsent.
All right, and thank you so much, Phil. Let me quickly say that the beauty of democracy is when you allow an inclusive participation. I want to quickly say that I don't want the government of the day to see this as an attack or as a slight, because the people are participating. They want to own the bill. And this is why democracy is beautiful. And remember that our popular saying when it comes to the conceptual definition of democracy points to the fact that the people actually own the government and own the power.
Basically.
Now, I have to establish this to say that this shouldn't be seen as a religious fight. It's nothing religious. Neither is it ethnical. I really want to clear that. Be that as it may, I was also going to make reference to what you just said. The Speaker of the Edo State Assembly have debunked that. And of course, the Edo State government have also to some extent said we shouldn't add sentiment or politics in this issue. The issue of Ruga ranching is not a recent discourse. It has been in the front line over the years. And for Edo State, our position have been made clear. No to Ruga. And again, if you have followed the trend of discussion over the years, most discussants on TV and other social medias or even on newspaper have said that yes, we clearly understand that this is a private business. Be that as it may, we cannot rule out the fact that since the farmer herders crisis have deepened, it has now called for the involvement of government with a view to seeing how to checkmate operations. It is not wrong for the government of the day to try to regulate this sector. I think Bishop said that clearly. You know, nobody is against regulating, okay? But I see this involvement as a way of we speaking not just for our today, but for our future. Now, Phil, you are a journalist, and I need you to investigate a little bit what happened in Jos many years ago. Today, the Jos crisis is like a continua, even as we speak in date. Now, history has it that there was stuff like this that were not well regulated. So the idea is to advise the government. And for me personally, I don't think the government, or ably led by Governor Obaseki, is clueless and insensitive to the wish of the people and to the fact that this is about our future. It's not about a pastor, it's not about an imam, it's not about this tribe, it's not about that tribe. It's about the fact that the government should sit down and ask itself one fundamental question. How will all of this play in the future? Let me bring your attention to the major bone of contention at the plenary session in the House, which was session 5. Initially, some honorable members, or rather, there was a discussion around, let there be a committee of some legislature that will determine the range of land that will be given. Please take note of this. Why Edo State citizens are concerned about this bill is because even if the government have said this is not Ruga, this is ranching, the content also matters a lot. Because beyond the headlines, the content of a bill is what will orchestrate the future. And like he said, politicians being who they are, I mean, permit me to say that a lot of times, a lot of people have not had reasons to really trust them. Part of the fears of the average Edoite is when you constitute a committee and say, let this committee determine the length and the breadth of the land to be given to these people. What is the credibility of such members of the committee? Are we sure that they will not sell us away for money? Because Philip, it has happened over the time. It's not a new thing. We've seen this thing happen. People sell their region, their ethnic, their land away, undermining the future consequences.
Okay.
Now, the point is, please let me drive this home. My point is, the so-called ranching bill or whatever should strictly be treated as a private business, while the government should provide regularization. It will be out of board for the government to try to own the project. Because I, as an educationist, will not have a right
thank you.
to say the government should kind of give me some settlement.
Thank you.
So I think the government should be able to have its boundaries and make it regulatory. That's my point.
You've articulated that point, and I will want Ibrahim Momoh to react to what has been said so far, but again to respond to that which Bishop Oche Osadilo said concerning the fact that the governor signed the resolution. And so by virtue of signing the resolution, it is binding that he should do it within the deadline date. How do you react to that, Ibrahim?
Well, there are a couple of issues to be unpacked. The first thing that is to make clearly that the Nigerian Governors Forum and the Southern and Northern Governors Forum, or indeed the sub-regional geopolitical zones governors forums are merely associations, not known to law.
Okay.
There's no legal entity called the Southern Governors Forum. The Nigerian government, it's not a legal entity. It is an association of governors. What the law knows is states and then governors. That's the first thing to do. But the certain individuals have a right of association. That is where that right of association is what is exercised by the governors who come together and form an association called the Nigerian Governors Forum, or in this context, the Southern Governors Forum. The Southern Governors Forum does not impose. It has no rights, to make laws or enforce laws or edicts, as the case may be, on states.
Okay.
That one needs to even be cleared out of the way. The second thing is that by virtue of being members of an association, an unregistered association anyway, it's not registered in law. That Nigerian Governors Forum, Nigerian Southern Governors Forum, it's not a legal entity.
Okay, but what is the question of the signatures taken?
By virtue of being members of that association, they can take decisions that are of common interest or benefit to them.
Okay.
And that is on the basis of which the governors met, the Southern governors met and agreed. In fact, I'm also aware that even the Northern governors met also banned open grazing too. So we have moved beyond the issue of whether or not the open grazing should be allowed. The level the discussion went to was, okay, one, there should be laws passed by the State House of Assembly, just like you have the Amotekun in the Southwest. When the Southwest Governors Forum, as the flag at the court, came together and agreed that you should have a regional security outfit, it didn't come into play until the state governors of the Southwest region came together, sent bills to the state assemblies, which were passed and then signed into law. At least in 5 of those 6 states, that has been done. Now, regarding the anti-open grazing bill, I think we need to unpack. The first issue is, the bill is about the banning of open grazing, because it is in that open grazing that we had issues about the destruction of farmland.
The farmers' headers clash.
Yes, first of all, farmers will plant the crops, which is part of what guarantees food security in the country. People don't know, when we talk about security, it's a more complex issue than just a safety of lives and property. It's much, much more complex than that. The key concept now in the security analysis, it's about not even national security or regional security, it's about human security and food security. These are the current trends when we talk about security. A country that cannot feed itself is a country in crisis.
It's not secured.
There's a security. So when we talk about food security, that was what the open grazing was doing. Sometimes you see cattle going to feed on crops that could have produced food for the people, and then hunger, escalation of inflation and the rest, escalation of prices of goods and services. That's one. Second issue is that there were atrocities now being committed by persons said to be, it became a franchise. People who are said to be headers are now guilty of issues about killing of farmers, of raping of women, amongst other security challenges that were now occurring And they were blamed squarely on those we call headers. And then, a government that is responsive, what it ought to do, and what I think the states are pushing for, and of course the federal government is doing, is to, now we don't want that, those incidences of people under the cover of grazing, of moving livestock about, committing all these crimes, either destroying crops, or maiming and raping, or even killing farmers and the women. So the open grazing to ban. Now, where the issue is now, what are the ways forward? Mm-hmm. I think the argument as to cattle herding, it's an entirely a priority. And that's the plank on which the protestation for
yes, of course.
Protest was held yesterday.
Yes, of course.
Now, what I found interesting is that it took the organized civil society groups, different groups that protested yesterday, to protest for the speaker, and indeed the House Assembly, to take inputs from the people. My background in political science tells me that there are the process of passing laws. Essentially, is the first reading and the second reading. After which you go to the committee stage. It is the committee stage that you have what we call public hearings. It's not the House Assembly or National Assembly members exist to represent the people. One of the core functions is that they are representatives of the people of their constituents or constituency.
But it was leading there.
Yeah,
it was leading there. So
we are asking,
this was presumptive.
Was there a plan? We have seen several laws passed without public hearing. Okay. It's not. I won't hold them accountable for protestation, because if they hadn't done that, perhaps what would have gotten was the law.
Yeah.
Signed into a bill signed into law, and then the people would not make an input. So, and the protest now brought out the speaker to affirm in public that there is no attempt to cede land, quote unquote cede land to the people.
Yes.
So, but I am certain that there has to be an arrangement that will ensure that cattle does not. It's not allowed to graze in public.
I think that's where we are going, because it's not just to say, okay, let's ban open grazing, but how do you commit these farmers and the herders, to live together? Because he may mention of the aspect of the piggery, and other livestock businesses, and that same way, this should be left like that, to go through, But I think this becomes a very critical situation, that demands critical solutions, and that's basically why the governor has been taking time to ensure that he treats this issue to a logical conclusion.
Well, I think two things. One, there are two extremes, and the solution is not in either.
Oh,
and that's the truth. The first extreme is that we create a large expanse of land and let them government will use our commonwealth to buy and give it to them. That's one extreme. It's not the solution is not there.
That will make sense.
The second extreme is that no government cannot play a part in the process, just regulation. That's also on that extreme. The solution is not in A or in B. The reality is that if we make it a purely private enterprise, as it is now, the challenges we are complaining about, it's okay to raise issues. But the challenges are complaining about, if we do the same thing repeatedly, how, therefore, do we get solutions? So
are you saying that the challenges will still arise?
It is going to arise.
Okay.
Let me just point out.
Let me quickly.
Let me point out two challenges.
Maybe we'll have to go violently to get from one from the other.
Yes, I'll come to you. That's what you mean. Let me finish.
Now, if look at two issues that could go wrong. One is that I've made, I think, a particular sometime last year, I've made on one of these TMI
of course,
issues,
yes.
that we have an example along Benin Uselu Lagos Road, around Uselu Park. There's a private ranch there. Just go to the people around there. If you're driving past, the stench you feel.
Yes, of course, it's not common.
I've given you a public example that is those who are saying it should be entirely private. Find out what's happening there.
Okay.
Even just driving by. That's the
Okay.
that's the
I would like to. It's not as if I'm cutting in, but I would like you to tell us exactly your point of view. You know, as a way of solving this problem.
which is why I thought that there should be a public hearing. I have a position, and I will state here. I think essentially, government should, have a matter of necessity, allow those who want to buy from holders, those landholders, to buy in a designated area. We might look at that, you can't go and buy from your. No, government has a role to play there. It is a private business. Government can facilitate. Government has to facilitate. If it means, okay, giving soft loans for the acquisition of land, but this is you don't have to agree.
Bishop Ocho said a lot of
it doesn't.
He's reacting to that.
No, it doesn't. Wait, let me present.
Okay.
You don't have to agree.
Oh, okay.
You're not even the governor or the speaker. You don't have to agree. But let's look at it.
But I'm one of their representatives.
Okay, I'll come back to you. I think you have the floor now.
Yes.
Because he's saying that either side won't work out. So what you are protesting over won't even work out.
Let me clear one thing. I don't think whether it's aware. First, when you want to establish poultry, there's a regulatory body.
There's a regulation.
Okay.
You don't just bring poultry and put it at the back of my house. Are you hearing me? When you are going to establish poultry, it's done very far from dwelling places.
Which Ibrahim agrees with.
Wait, he has not. Wait. Very far from dwelling places. And as soon as development gets close to that place, you are written to relocate. Or close down. Are you hearing me? My worries is, why is it that these cattle headers, nobody is bold to tell them truth in this country, like my brother? One, can any Nigerian or Southerner tell me what percentage of land have the Northerners made available for those who do fisheries, piggery, poultry, rabbitry, and so forth and so on? That, okay, since they will give our people and those of us who are big men this side who are owners of this car, that's where government has some problem. That the rich men who are very close are the owners of the cattle. They are only bringing Fulani to help shepherd them. Now, what percentage of land do we have in the north for our own piggery and other animal husbandry? If there is none, and no government has ever made such attempt to say, give other animal husbandry practitioners 1 inch by 1 inch, why are we too carried away? My dear, I'm no longer a young man.
Okay,
in this country, I know how cow started.
Okay,
my first village.
You see on the floor?
Yeah, my first village where I started work in the 70s. They don't know anything called cow. They have never seen it.
You see at the floor, the National Livestock Transformation Plan that was inaugurated in 2019, you know, under the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, you know, was to raise agrarian societies in order to diversify the economy of the country. Okay. Now, if that comes on board and facilities are given, you know, to encourage in this regard, do you say that you are against that?
No. Oh. Capital, no. They should also give me land in the north to plant cassava, because they are also going to boost the economy of the state and the country.
But isn't that ongoing? Isn't that ongoing where facilities are given to farmers? Are you saying that that is not ongoing?
Facility. The method and what they pretend and what they have in mind is what Philip don't know.
Oh.
And if you remember, before 2015 elections, Philip, you were my friend then, and I was coming with some documents here.
I'm still your friend. I'm still your friend.
To tell you and Nigerians,
yes,
what this government will do.
Okay, what's your fear?
If they win. Everything I said then has played out.
Okay, what's your fear?
And I'm telling you again now, that by the time we give them 1 inch by 1 inch, we have created community inside community.
But it will be regulated, don't forget that.
Oh God, there is no government regulation that is working in Nigeria. because the regulation has to do with your political association and how you know the person and how much is in your pocket. That's how the regulation, Philip is my boy. That's the regulation. Okay. He's a member of our party. That's the regulation. The governor's a friend, don't go there. That's the regulation. Are you hearing me? So we are saying capital.
No.
No.
Okay.
To government involvement. We are not saying no to cattle rearing. We are not saying no that they should not have where to put their cattle.
We are saying it should be purely private business.
Purely private business.
Okay.
And this purely private business is that if you are interested, like I have the money, I want to go into cattle rearing, I should look for, I was a very rich boy.
Okay.
When Goat was in the offering. That's why in my primary school I was riding bicycle. My headmaster will come and borrow my bicycle. Are you hearing me? So I know everything about riding at my time, at my level of goat and fowl.
Okay.
So it was no government that was doing it for me. If they need land, let them approach communities or individuals to sell land to them. Let government to be involved to see whether that land given to them is close to town, whether it will have effect.
Thank you, Oche. Thank you, Oche. Bishop Oche.
So that they will not regulate that.
Thank you, Bishop Oche.
First land your pen.
I think that's exactly where the secretary to the state government, Osaudion Ogie, Esquire, was saying that all these inputs should be brought, as engaging the House of Assembly on the grazing bill process, and I think all these inputs will be welcomed, if the House of Assembly, bring it out, and it's quite important and quite needful for the protest, which went peacefully, to come up so that we can arrest all of these issues and beat this bill into shape. I think that's the essence of all the protests.
But let me say just one thing. First, I want to appreciate the Speaker and the members that came to receive us. They were very honest, very lively. They have given us their word. We are trusting their word to be truth. We want to appeal that they follow what they have told us. And look at our position paper, clause by clause, because we followed everything that they have proposed. The one we accepted, we told them it's okay. The one we say, please expunge this completely, is there. The one we say, change this nomenclature from this name to this one, is there. They should look at it clearly and follow.
Thank you very much.
So that will not happen.
Thank you very much. I think that's the essence of having the civil society organizations, because if we take the civil society organizations away from the society, I think there will be a lot that will be lost. So how do you make up this development by Ibrahim Momo, that if it's left as private business entirely, there will be issues? He said either side
let me quickly say
what's
that.
your opinion in that direction?
First of all, I totally disagree with that.
Oh.
Yes. Let me quickly say that it's a free word. Everybody have right to his own positions. But what we have to look at is how valid are these positions. Okay? I don't want the government, neither the people or the civil society, for us to complicate these issues. Because there is an extent to which we will start emphasizing it again and again. You will suddenly now see the Mieti Allah issuing another statement. So just say the government should come and give nothing wrong in giving land. Maybe you don't know the meaning of to see the land. You know what it means by law? It means you have granted people independence.
But that is not happening. That is not happening.
No, it's not happening. No, I am responding when he said there's
Yes.
nothing wrong if the government say take. All over the world, sir.
Okay.
The responsibility of the government is to create policies. Policies regulate, guidelines. This is how it is to work. What I expected the government to have done is come up with these robust policies and not try to own the project. See, I have a fear that my colleague may not really be aware of. We must learn to go to history and ask yourself, how did this violence started? And over the years, sir, you are a journalist. I'm sure you have read all kind of nonsense decree and press conference that the Mietiala are brought up sometimes.
Well, I think this is not the forum.
Listen,
this is not the forum.
No, it's not the forum.
Because I don't even have the members of the association here. And so please,
all right. Now, what I mean is, say no, you know the point I'm actually driving at.
Yeah.
If you say, let's give up and not give them a land because they have been agitating over the years, you're encouraging another group to come out tomorrow and say the way to get this government is to go violent. And over time, people will also come and say, give them land so there will be peace. What I'm trying to say, Philip, is there are so many complicated issues, and I don't want us to complicate it further. Any sane person that understands the meaning of policy and regulation should know that when you say policies, it's a robust approach. The government, there are different sectors, for example. Like, for example, we have the educational sector. You need to see the robust regulation on how the private sector should play in the educational industry. Now, policy is the way to go. When you now tell me, because for there to be peace, let the government just give them land, I think that is not good enough. Now, let me tell you, when you say something private, like he said, there's a popular saying that what is good for the goose is also good for the ganders. So when you tell me that, okay, let them now adopt them, give them land, what do you now do to others? Because we must be fair.
These are part of what we'll be discussing in the engagement.
My point.
And I believe Bishop Ocho Sadolo and the other human rights activists, civil society activists, they are ready for the engagement, aren't you?
Finally, to drop this, I have a problem when we keep on encouraging politicians to say they are in a group, it's not binding by law. They can make promise, make agreement, and go tomorrow and say, I don't like it. That's why we are where we are in this nation. I'm not against any person having his own free thinking. I'm not against the government taking its time. Even though he couldn't meet up to the deadline of September, I'm not against that. But I'm against when we keep on telling politicians, you can make an agreement, you can sign a peace accord, you can go to any government forum, refuse to say your mind or your position, sign a paper, and tomorrow you can come and throw it away. That is why we are where we are in Nigeria.
So there should be a change in that direction?
We must learn to hold leadership responsible.
Okay.
Why in the first place did you sign the door? If there was anything like that in the first place, because that's something you have to also check out.
Why did you give your signature to the resolutions?
Why did you not say your mind and your position? I don't have any problem. When the government said, I want to make a law that is implementable, that's why I said the government of Obaseki is too smart for some kind of nonsense. That's what I've been thinking before now, and I still believe that his wisdom, his intellect, and his people carrying along policy will play out in this case.
Okay, but I think the signature isn't for the deadline. The signature was for agreeing to the fact that there will be a bill that will be embraced by the people.
Okay, he just said he has a copy. Can give you a copy. So that's sort out the issues.
An association can hold a deadline that will bind.
No, I am not saying it's binding. You are not getting me, Phil. Neither am I saying they are recognized by law. I am trying to address the national thing. Where, for example, where politicians come on campaign and say, I will do heaven and earth. He gets there and he says, I told them away. Just rhetoric. We must begin. Yes, what I'm saying, we must begin to change that narrative. Then going forward,
because a lot of agreements have been entered.
My last point is, this is a sensitive bill. Those states citizens have the right to be involved. Okay. We are afraid, not just for us, for our future. We don't want the just experience in Edo State. The government should not be a party to ceding any land, agreeing that any land be ceded or whatever, whether it's within the main town or outskirts. The government should be able to partner with the local communities and create a kind of regulation.
Thank you.
For our safety and for our collective survival.
I want you to finish on your point. You have a minute.
Yes. Like you mentioned, it is an agreement that they reached and signed. It's not a secret document. And it has all the right when they say come and sign and say, well, I won't sign, let me consult with my people. Nobody will force it.
Knowing the implications of the signature.
Knowing the implication of his signature as a governor.
I think that's where Osagi Gossett is saying that a responsible leadership should be guided in that regard.
What agreement they have reached.
Okay.
Right? Like I said, we are looking at the future, the third and fourth generation.
Yeah, of course, there's a dictum that says that it's better late than never.
What will happen
so eventually,
to them
I think
when
all
we
of this
are no
will come
longer alive.
Yes.
We don't want that experience of Jos
Thank you.
to come.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you. Okay, round off on your point, Ibrahim.
I think that maybe people are too swayed by, hysteria and fear mongering, and then we are not looking at issues, with that's my thinking.
Logically.
I
So you are saying that fears could be beclouding the
yes,
sense of reason.
I've heard on this platform.
Okay.
That no to the government participation in determining the definition of a landmass for herding. On this platform, that has been fed.
No, we only said seed to seed. That's what we said. We didn't say the government cannot participate, cannot give guidelines. Like there's a debate on percentage. We are saying seed. You said the government should give. No, I wanted to correct that wrong impression. It was a wrong impression.
Ibrahim has already heard what you guys said.
We are given enough to allow somebody else speak. In all the times you have spoken, I didn't interject.
No, I only needed to correct that wrong impression. You gave a wrong impression. It's a wrong impression now that we said. I said, no, that was not what we said.
Ibrahim, you have
for the purpose of
in 1 minute
records.
That's the first thing that, in the way of pushing their argument, you use the word seed, colonize, fear mongering. And then second point is that...
You call that fear mongering?
Yes, I think so.
We did not say colonize.
No, particularly on air, you have used that word.
No, I didn't use it.
Okay, now, if I can make my
He has already established that he didn't use it. So go ahead and...
Secondly is the point that we're also saying that if we are going to do it here, they should also do it there. We have to be consistent. Nobody will consider. I've also heard that from
I didn't say that too. I say we should ask a question. If you do it there.
Okay.
I said we should ask a question.
Okay.
What percentage of land do they give to those who are into this?
Okay, thank you. I think this is what you can take. Yes.
When I ask a question, say I said.
Okay, big
You
thanks,
are the
Ibrahim
one to
Momo.
answer for them.
Big thanks, Ibrahim Momo. Big thanks, Osagi Godsend. And big thanks, Bishop Ocho Sadolo. We just hope that going forward, the Edo State House of Assembly will really set the ball rolling and bring about engagement of the Edo civil society organizations and members of the public in order to really dissect and analyze and critically look at this issue of the grazing bill objectively, not just to pass a law against open grazing, but to bring about peaceful resolution between the herders and, of course, the farmers. Well, it's still TMI. Don't you go away.